Good morning. So you all know the drill already. You have to say it's okay. So this is my OneDrive account. Okay. And I'm gonna take a couple of minutes and just take you through pieces of the. I'm using a second device, so I am monitoring the chat. So I may ask you some yes and no questions. Um, and we'll kind of go from there. But anyway, so what is OneDrive? And again, some of you may know, some of you may not know. So OneDrive is, actually, let me do one more quick thing. Let me just mute everybody in case someone isn't. Okay, good. So what OneDrive is Microsoft's cloud-based file management system. And it's a little bit different. A lot of people compare it to Google, which is also a cloud-based system. But there are some differences. So, for example, Google, and this goes for both the file management and the application, is completely cloud-based. Microsoft is a hybrid. It was originally completely a desktop application, and now they have migrated to be this kind of hybrid where you can both work on the desktop and do all the things you used to do on the desktop, or you can work through the online. Where this causes some confusion for folks is, where are their files? So for a lot of people, they really haven't been using OneDrive very much because they're continuing to save files on their network, on their local network. And that presented quite a bit of problems a year and a half ago when we had to shut down on short notice. So how many of you, I know the answer, of course, but how many of you on extremely short notice were told, go home and we don't know exactly when you're coming back, okay? And we'll try to figure out how you're going to work from home, okay? And if that happened to you, just say yes, okay? So I know that a lot of people struggled in the very beginning because of that, because they didn't have access to their files. And even though in some cases we had these VPN systems that they were kind of cumbersome, and in some cases we didn't even have the stuff filed electronically. It was on paper and people had to come in. So I think after that, there's been a lot of rethinking. A lot of people have said, we really need to take a greater advantage of these online capabilities. And in some cases, we now have districts even saying we want all the files on OneDrive because we don't know when we might have to shut down again. And also we may consider at some point even getting rid of our networks. I mean, if Microsoft's going to do it for us or Google is going to do it for us, why do we really even need to have these redundant networks? So, and I have seen some districts that are moving in that direction. So I don't know what's going on in your district. It may be different, maybe a combination of the two, but a lot of people are looking at some of the great advantages of OneDrive and what you can really do. So what I'm going to do with you, I'm going to try to make a comparison and kind of show you all the basics of the stuff that you need to do to get going. I'll say one more thing about OneDrive. You are going to absolutely have to use OneDrive if you want to use Microsoft's online applications. So the first question I would ask is, how many of you were familiar with the fact that there is actually an online version of Word, an online version of PowerPoint, an online version of Excel? There isn't a publisher, and there actually is an online version of Outlook as well. But how many of you know about that? And any of you used it? Have any of you used the online applications themselves? Yes, no? Because I'm going to take a look just briefly at Word Online. Because I think that's okay, good. All right, good. So this was another kind of interesting thing that happened for those who may not be familiar. But when people got sent home, districts were scrambling to get people, because a lot of people worked on desktops at work, get them laptops to take home. And in some cases, those laptops, depending on what they were not necessarily installed with the desktop applications. Because unlike Google, because it's purely cloud-based, it doesn't matter what you run it on. But with Microsoft's desktop applications, you had to have the applications loaded, and some people had them at home, some people didn't. But the online versions were available, and in fact, even usable on devices that could not handle the desktop applications, in particular, Chromebooks. So the conventional wisdom is you can't do Microsoft on a Chromebook. Well, you can use the online versions, because anything where there's a web browser, you can use it, but you have to tie it in with OneDrive. So, by the way, there are also phone applications for both Android and iPhone, iOS. Has any of you used the phone-based Word or Excel or PowerPoint? Just curious. So let me just say, it isn't really fun. It wouldn't really be fun to type a letter on your phone. However, they are kind of handy to have, because if you have to make a tiny edit, a small word change or two, you can certainly do it on your phone, and then that's going to be reflected on the document if it's being saved in OneDrive. So I definitely think it's worthwhile to download them. You should not have any problem accessing your files. When you download them, they're just going to ask you to put in your credentials, the same district credentials, and that'll make you good to go. So it's definitely worth taking a look at. Okay. All right. So for those of you who work on regular, on your in-district networks, you're probably familiar with things like C, and they have different letters, but C drives, F drives, H drives, G drives. So with both Google and Microsoft, they don't use letters. It's just a cloud convention not to use letters. Okay. So instead, the equivalent to, say, your G drive or your H drive or your L drive is My Files. That's your root directory. And the basic rule is no file, good practice, no files in the root directory, only folders. Not a good idea to have files in your root directory. It gets very messy. So I want to, I'm going to confess my sins. I have a few. Okay. And I intentionally left them. I could have cleaned it up before I did the session so I could show you. Okay. But, so it always shows your folders first. These are my few files. And most of these are just fake ones that I've been using for training. Okay. So, but they don't really belong there. So just a bit of advice, if you're not doing this already, a lot of the reasons why items get down there is, particularly if you're using the online versions, sometimes people will start a document to only put type a few characters and then run off to do something else because they got interrupted, and it automatically saves them. So normally when you see things like document 1 and document 2, those were automatically name generated, and they usually, I find when I look at them, they have like nothing in them. Okay. And they just need to be deleted. If there's stuff that you did work on, it's a good idea to move it. So I want to just start by giving a suggestion for a folder or two, and you can have both or one, but I think it's a good idea to have a folder called either miscellaneous or inbox. Because sometimes when we're in the middle of working on something, we may not know right away exactly where we want to put it. We're in a haste to get it out, and we'll figure out later where it belongs. So my recommendation is, when that happens, put them all in miscellaneous, put them all in inbox. And then when you get a free moment, the end of the day, or even the end of the week, or the end of the month, you can go in and then at that point move them into wherever you think the appropriate folders is, and get them not in the root directory. So first question, how many of you are willing to confess your sins Anybody have files in their root directory? If you do, just type yes. Okay. And if you're better than me and you don't, that's terrific too. Okay. Yeah, okay. So we're all gonna commit to moving them. Good. So that begs the question, how do you move something into a folder? Okay. And how do you create folders? So I'm gonna go over all of that. Okay. And I understand some of you may know this. I'm operating an assumption, some don't. So I want to cover the basics and make sure we don't leave anybody behind here. So there's two ways that you can move something. You can drag and drop, which I find not a really good way to go. And it's especially difficult if the item is outside of your view. So if I was simply going to drop it over to samples, I could probably pull that off and that'll work. Okay, I'm not even sure I succeeded. As you can see, I'm not a big fan of doing it this way. It's really a pain in the neck. So I may as well just show you the way I'm gonna suggest and not even bother. It's not, oh, that time it worked. Okay, so the better way, because you don't have to worry about ending it and having it end up in the wrong place, is to right click, particularly if you have a mouse, and do move to. Okay. And then if you go to move to, it's going to show you all your folders. And by the way, if you have a subfolder, because in the last session I created a little subfolder, I can certainly select a subfolder as well. Okay. And then I just go confirm, move, and it will move the item. Okay. And so you can see why that's much better, because you can see all of your items. Now, I just do want to show you one more thing. I'm going to do one more. And I'm going to go through the same process, even though I'm probably not going to do it. Okay. So you can actually also create a new folder this way. Maybe I actually will do it. Okay. So I'm going to go to my little parent here. This was my example before. And I can just decide under that. Now, by the way, since I'm under parent, it's going to, under child, it's going to create the folder under there. And I have lots of grandchildren, actually not really, only two. So I'm going to go grandchild 3, and now I've created a third folder, and then I can place the item. I can do move and move it into there. So you can actually create a folder through the moving process. You don't have to go and go, whoops, I don't really know where I want to put it. Let me go out and create a folder. I can move items. Okay. By the way, if you have an item and you're not sure where it is, and it was a recent item, you can check your most recent items and it'll show them chronologically. You can usually find. Okay. All right. So if questions so far, everybody good? Everybody okay? All right. So if you go up top and you don't select an item, because you select an item, this is going to obliterate this menu. You have to have nothing selected. You're going to see 2 tabs up top. And I want to start with the first one, which is new. And I'm going to show you actually in a minute or two how you actually can open up, you know, the online version of Word or Excel right through new in OneDrive. However, for now, I just want to talk about creating a folder. Okay. So I'm going to do the same ones I did before. I'm just going to, I'll just give you an example. So I'll call it parent 1. So I've now created a folder called parent 1. And where the folder gets created depends on where you are. If you're in my files, it's going to create the folder, a subfolder under my files. If I'm in a subfolder, it's going to create a folder under that. So I'm going to create another folder. I'm going to call it child. Right. And then I'm going to go under child. I'm not going to get as elaborate as it did with the other one. And I'm going to have a grandchild. And so now I have my subfolders, and I can look at the tree at any time I want to see where I'm at. So this is under my root of my files, parent, one, child, and I'm in the subfolder grandchild. If I want to move up, I can just double click, very similar to what you would do, if you were on your desktop. But I certainly have all the same ability to, organize files, create, set them up, etc. Okay. Views. So there are three basic views for your items. There is the list view. There is a compact view, which shows it's basically list compressed. And there is a tile view. Now, normally people are not going to do a tile view for a root directory. I mean, you could, but I've just played with this, so I'm going to go to picture and camera roll, actually. And right now I'm just seeing my files, but if I go to tile view, and these again are the folders, but I just thought I'd share this as this was kind of funny. I don't know if you can see it. I think I don't actually live on Long Island, but there's a place in Nassau County. I think it's near Roosevelt Field. And they have a dog grooming and training place that they've kind of given the moniker of martial arts. Anybody ever seen this? It made the biggest laugh for me because I'm actually a martial arts student. Okay. But notice I can actually see all of the documents. These are pictures, these are videos. It'll even tell me the time of the video. Okay. So that just sometimes, it just may help you find an item. Typically you're going to be in either list or compact. You, by the way, also can, as you can with a lot of networks, you can also have them sorted by name, the last time modified, size, low size to high size, or ascending or descending order. Okay. Searching. So you have an ability to search for your files up top. You can make your searches more granular. And a lot of people get confused here because they don't see the option. You have to type something first or it won't show up. Okay. So as soon as I type at least one letter, now I get an additional arrow on the corner. See, so if I have nothing in there, I don't see it. I got to at least type something. Then I get an arrow in the corner, and then I get a few more. It'll do just a regular search, just searching for P. I better get something a little bit more specific, but I can narrow that. So I can say, no, not unless you upload them. It wouldn't automatically be on OneDrive unless you've uploaded them into OneDrive. It's not an automatic process. Unless somebody in your district did that, and typically no, you may have to load them. Okay. And I can then narrow this to which I think is actually going to show nothing. No, actually it did. It's going to narrow it to just photos or just documents or just folders. This is only P, so it's showing me all the folders that have a P in the name. Okay. Or any type. And then I also can give it some ranges on dates. I don't have as much control as I do under Google. We can actually set very, very fine, narrow parameters, but usually pretty good. Like if you worked on something in the last week or the last day, it'll definitely pull those up if for some reason you can't figure out where you put something. Okay. Under what subfolder it ended up. Okay. All right. Okay. Let's take a look. I'm just looking at my list. I want to make sure I cover everything with you. Okay, let's take a look at, well, let's go over how you actually get something into OneDrive. Now, if your district, somebody at some level has migrated your files into OneDrive, you probably don't need to do this. But my experience is I haven't seen too many places where that's happened unless they're eliminating the network. Usually they're leaving it to individuals to upload what they want to upload. Okay. And when you upload it to OneDrive and you still would have it on your network, obviously now there are two versions of stuff, they're not necessarily going to sync, but you certainly don't have to eliminate it from your network because you're uploading. Okay. So there's a couple of ways that you can upload one, and you can upload a file or a folder. If I'm uploading a file, when I select it, it's going to bring me to my files. Now, I actually don't use OneDrive as my major cloud. I use Dropbox for reasons having to do with the fact that I have some clients that are Google and some are Microsoft, and I've been using it for years. Okay. So I can choose to just select a file and upload it. Where it uploads depends on where I was at. I was in my files. So when it uploads, and these uploads are really cumbersome here because I'm dealing with trying to run everything at the same time. Okay. But I should now see that item, and here it is. Okay. It was a logo and it'll just upload it. If I would have been in a folder like Word docs and I did the same upload, and I could redo the same thing again. It doesn't really matter. I just use it as a sample. But if I, move something else, or I move something else, it's going to end up in the folder I move it into. Okay. So, just be aware of that when you're making the choice to upload. By the way, if I don't like it, I can quickly delete once it's finished. I would have to delete it. I see somebody has a question or something. Or comment. All right. If you're using the online version, there should be really no difference. There are what's called like desktop apps for OneDrive that apply to both the Windows and the Mac and the PC. Windows and just having a brain, but you know what I mean. It works in both a PC or a Mac. But those are really only uploaders. So what'll happen is under your My Files on your computer, or your list of your items, you might see something that says OneDrive. And that what happens is if you throw anything in there, it automatically uploads it. But it doesn't give you the kind of control you have from the online version. And once you do the online version, there's absolutely no difference between a Mac and a PC. And today I'm on a Mac. And when we do some of the future sessions, I'll fire up my PC because there are significant differences between, for example, the Windows version and the Mac version of Word. And I know most people work with Windows, so I'll be using, a Windows computer. For this does not matter. I don't know if that answered your question. Okay. All right. And it's just going to take you wherever your file tree is in your computer. And at that point, you could even actually have stuff on a thumb drive and access your thumb drive and then upload this way too. Okay. So we went over uploading. You can also upload a folder. And I could select a particular folder for reasons that make sense. I'm not going to do that because it takes some time here. But I can upload a folder and it'll pull everything that's in that folder, including the folder name, right into either My Files or whatever, wherever I want it. So you don't have, if you have 50 files that you now want to migrate over, you don't have to individually upload them. You can also drag and drop them. I find that sometimes works and sometimes doesn't. It's another one of those funny, but I could certainly pull something and then drop it in, and you'll see that's uploading as well. Okay. So I can do it drop and drag. I can do it by doing the upload. I have a lot of control over how I can get stuff in. Okay. And I don't know what's going on with this. I may decide to stop it. No. Okay. That's no problem. Okay. Yeah, let's take a look at Word Online. So by the way, there are two ways you can access this too. Actually, three. So one way you can access Word Online is just to type in your search bar of whatever your browser is, Word Online, and it'll pull it up. If you've never opened it up before, you'll probably have to enter your credentials, which is usually your district email address and your password. Same thing you probably use for login if you're an Office 365 district. If you've done it once before, usually you don't have to do it again, okay? Depending on how it was set up. So you can do it just with the search browser. The other way you can do it is through here, and even here you have two choices. So one of the ways is you can go to, which is the applications dot, and select Word. I'm not going to do that yet because I want to do it the other way, okay? If you do that, that will load Word Online. And then at that point, you have to say, I want a new document. If you want to create a brand new document just from here, as opposed to accessing something else you've done, you can go here and it'll initiate a document. And hopefully this will work. Last time I had to shut something off to get this to work. Because I'm pushing a lot of stuff around at the same time here. So let me try again. There we got work this time. Oh, gee, I'm so happy. Okay. Oh, yeah, there's a big difference between sharing as a link versus a copy for a lot of reasons, which I'll talk about in a couple of minutes. Okay. All right. So normally when you do stuff on a desktop, certainly this was the old process. The normal process is to, work on the document and save it at the end. But the problem here is the moment you start typing, it's starting to create a document here, that's being saved. Because saving is automatic. There's no save. So it's a good practice to name your document right away. Now, if I were giving advice to the Microsoft team, I would tell them to make a change here. Because the problem here is you're only able to change the name. You can't change the location. So if you go up top to do this, it's going to put it in your root directory. You're going to be with my bad. Not that you can't move it. The better way, I just wish it was right there, is I can go to, and I'm going to leave this one alone, but I could go to File and do Save As. And here it's asking me, do I want to save it? Do I want to download it to my desktop? Or do I want to save it online? And it's then going to show me all of my my subfiles. So if I wanted to put it under parent and child, I could do that. And now it's going to save it to that location. Okay. Eventually. Now, because I did a save as after a save, there's actually two of them now, but okay. So notice when I now click here, it doesn't show you all of the tree, but it does show you that it's in a subfolder. Do you follow that? But I can't change it here. If I click here, it'll just take me out of Word and into the Word Online, and it'll take me into OneDrive again. So you do have to do Save As if you want it in any subfolder. Okay, question so far. Now I can do the exact, okay. Yeah, see, that's weird because I can't do it here. So, and you can do it up top in the place where I am. No, all right. We got to figure out why. Maybe it's Mac and PC. Could be what, okay. Oh, well, you mean what's the difference if you go the other way? Sure. If I go the other way, it's going to take me to my main and it's going to show me all of my recent documents. Then I'm going to have to select a new document. So it's just a shortcut process because I'm telling it in OneDrive to create a new Word document. That's really the only difference. Okay. I wonder if the reason why I can't do this may have to do with the browser. Like I'm using Safari here. I'm actually going to try it tonight on my PC where I'm using like Explorer, because I could see that being a difference as a result of the browser. That could be a browser difference. Okay. Or Chrome. Actually, I have Chrome. I can actually do that. But something tells me that's the reason for the difference. If I was using Microsoft Edge, which I have on my PC, it might be a difference. Okay. All right. Okay. Now, by the way, you can certainly share a document right in Word. You can actually even share a document on your desktop if you've set it for online. And I probably I didn't go over this in the other session. Let me do this. Okay. Always makes me nervous to have a lot of stuff open at the same time when I'm trying to meeting, but I'm actually opening the desktop version of Word just so that all of you know. So if I'm in the desktop version of Word, typically it's just going to have me save it on my network. But if I go up top and I click auto save, that automatically puts it in OneDrive. Okay. And then I have an ability to select my most recent. Actually, I can go to other and pull them all up. Okay. And now it's being saved. Now it's exactly the same as the online, except to have the same name. So I had to change it. And now if I go into OneDrive, that document's going to be in there and it's going to be reflected. So you don't have to do a document on the online version to have that document do an auto save into onto OneDrive. You can actually just automatically do auto save and then they'll always go. If you don't have auto save on, you cannot share on your desktop. If you select auto save, then you can share on your desktop. Okay, and it pretty much do everything that you could do. They look slightly different, but you can do basically the same things you could do on the online version. Okay, so I'm now back in OneDrive. I know it gets a little crazy going back and forth. So let's start just by sharing a document. So anytime I click and check, I get a larger menu up top. I'm going to go to share. And I kind of have two ways of sharing here. If I just want to quickly share, okay, well, I'm going to show you that. Okay, so I can put in the names. And here, because it's my own personal account, you're not going to see too many. However, if you are in a district, it's probably going to pull up by typing everybody in your district and their email addresses that are in the system. Okay. So if I do it this way, let's say, and I'm again, like I'm sort of like sending it to myself, right? And now I can also send a message with it. if I go to the top under what looks like the little pencil, then I can indicate whether it's view or edit. So I think that was the question you were asking, Andrea, right? I can have it be only view, and it'll actually even show up that way, or edit. Okay, so that's one way I can share. The other way I can share is through a link, and that actually gives me even more control, depending on how your district's done its setting. Some people have said they don't have this capability, some say they do. So a lot of it has to do with how your network administrator set things up. But you can say anyone with the link, or again, you can specify the people. If you do anyone with the link, again, you can, well, either one, you can choose, do I want to allow them to edit or not? If I have it unchecked, they're not going to be able to edit. They're only going to be able to view. And I can even set an expiration date if my district allows that. And I can set a password, which is really more a password for me, that would allow only me to change this. Okay, so even if I had an allowed editing, only I could change the expiration date. Okay, so why might you change an expiration date? Well, maybe you're sending out a calendar for the year and you don't want people next year to pull up the wrong one. So you'll set it to end at the end of the year. If someone clicks the link, they just won't be able to get the calendar. Okay, they'll have to get the new calendar. So I think somebody asked the question, what's the difference between sharing a document and a copy? I'm not sure if I understand completely the question. What I would say is this: there are a number of differences between sharing a link versus sharing like an attached document. A number of differences, and they're worth taking a minute to talk about. So the first reason why it's a benefit to share a link is if a document is very, very large, you may not even be able to send it through traditional email purposes. So for example, I worked on a business office manual for White Plains. It was 363 pages. I did not write all the pages. I'm more the editor, but it was 363 pages with all kinds of like screen captures from Envision, and it would absolutely impossible to send it by email. So the only option was to send it as a attachment. The other thing is, and this is where it's a whole different rethinking, but our traditional thinking is that we send documents to be printed. We never wanted this to be printed. We wanted it to be a document that people have as a resource. And if we made updates, the updates got reflected. If we sent it as an attachment, and every time we did an update, I have to send another version. If I send an update as a link, if I send a link and then changes are made in the document, those are automatically reflected in the link. So let me give you a hypothetical that makes sense on this. Let's say that I have a schedule that I send out to the staff. And I send it as an email. I send out to it, here's our schedule. And then for some reason there are changes. So then I have to send them a revised schedule as another attachment, different document. Then we have some additional changes. I've sent a third. What do you think the chances are that some of the people are going to get confused as to which is the final one and open up the wrong one? But if I send a link, I don't ever have to even resend those. Maybe I'll want to tell people there's an update in case they printed it, but I don't necessarily have to keep resending because the link is to the document. And as I'm updating and changing that document, it gets reflected in the link. So the links don't take you to a hard and fixed version. They take you to whatever the document looks like at this time. So that's huge when we look at things where we're going to have updates, et cetera. How many of you are using links in some way now? Okay. As opposed to sending attachments. Okay. Questions? So I think we're good on this. I want to take about another maybe 6 or 7 minutes and show you OneNote. Okay. Has anybody worked with OneNote at all? Yes, no. Now, once again, I have a lot of options here. I can have, there's a Mac version of OneNote, there's a PC version of OneNote, and there's an online version. I have to tell you, when it comes to that, they're almost identical. So there's really no reason why I can't show you the desktop one and not put caution to the wind on trying to run the Zoom meeting and show you stuff online. Okay. All right. So in particular, I just want to show you kind of an interesting document that I've created. Okay. But before I do that, let's just talk about the organization tree for OneNote and even what OneNote is. So OneNote is a note-taking application. Okay. And it's a collaborative note-taking application. So a lot of people look at it and they can't even figure out what's the big deal with it until they really get a chance to appreciate the benefits, especially with regards to collaboration. So here, I'll just give you a personal one. Okay. All right. Have any of you, and I'm not even sure which one I want to look at here. I may just talk about this. Have any of you ever written a note when you went to go to the supermarket, like a shopping list, and then left your shopping list home? If that's happened to you, just say yes. Okay. Where maybe you're much better people than me. But if any of you made a shopping list and then you misplaced the shopping list, or you leave it at home, or you leave it in your car. Okay. So if you use OneNote, that'll never happen again. Because if you prepare your note at home, there's a OneNote app for your phone. You will have access to your list on your phone. So you can never misplace your list. So it's great for anything where reminders to self, to-do lists, etc., just because of its accessibility everywhere. Okay. So that's just an easy and simple use. Okay. And it's just a question of creating a little note that's a list. What I want to show you and share with you in the next couple of minutes is a really interesting application that I did actually for White Plains. I have no problem sharing where I initially did it. Okay. So I'll just give you the background on this, and then I'll show you what I set up. Okay, so I met with the assistant superintendent for business. Who's a wonderful person and a real pro in the business. And she had a new secretary now, or administrative assistant. Her administrative assistant was new to the business office. She was not an inexperienced administrative assistant. She had a lot of experience in the district, but she was struggling a little bit because there are complexities to the business office that are unique. And unfortunately, her boss is out and about all the time. So it was difficult for them to connect to answer a lot of her questions. And she was feeling frustrated. The assistant superintendent was feeling frustrated. And they said to me, do you have any ideas or suggestions? And I said, I think you guys would be a perfect candidate to use OneNote, because I think it would really, and the district is a Microsoft district, so they already had it. And they started using it. So I'm going to show you the sample I created for them. Obviously, I don't want to share theirs because it has details that are confidential, but it'll just give you an idea of the basic frame of what was set up. Okay. So the first thing I should tell you is that there's an organizational tree to this. There are notebooks. There are, I think they call them sections, and then there are pages. I really did not get too crazy with this. So I had just a notebook and right to the pages, and we have 4 pages. Okay. So I'll show you each page and then I'll show you how it's set up. So the first page is a phone message. And by the way, there are a lot of things you can put in a note. You can set up a note to just be like text. You can set up a note with an audio note. Or you can set up a note as a table. And I like tables, so I set this up with tables. And again, once you set up a table, you can always just add lines or add columns and rows. So I'll just take you through what's here. So, and these are just fake, but it'll give you an idea. So here we have the date, the time, the person, the title. So now the administrator system takes all messages on OneNote. So before, every time there was a message, she emailed it to her boss, and the boss is buried in emails, and there was no way to have good two-way communication. So what's beautiful here is there's an ability to have two-way communication. So what happens is the administrator has a phone. She also has a tablet. Whenever she gets a free moment, she goes in and she can actually comment back to her assistant, call her and tell her it's been canceled, or tell her I'll call her next week, or whatever. So they actually communicate back and forth on what to happen with the messages. And then when an item is finished, they just mark it as done. The second page here is a to-do list. So again, nothing wild or crazy, just a to-do list. What's interesting about the to-do list was the administrative assistant was new to the business office. She really wasn't always sure which things took precedence that had to get done. It was more work than ever had to be done. So I said, okay, well, you put your priorities, you'll do letters, what you think it should be. And then your boss is just going to come in and give you a rough idea on order. If you can't get them all done, try to get them done in that order. And then the administrator could also add items. Okay, so if she's out, instead of having to call her and say, check on that, she just put it in the to-do list and then reorder. Third thing was, because she was new, there were a lot of questions and she was feeling frustrated. She wanted to call her all the time or send her emails. So she kept all the questions in one question tab. And so I just wrote a couple here, does this require a board resolution? The boss would answer no. So she would see that. She would know what to do. And at that point, she'd take it out. Okay. And so there were questions, and I just put one additional page for any comments back and forth between them. But the three essential pages were those pages. So my first question is, what do you think of the idea? How many of you think it's a really cool idea? And it allows collaboration that doesn't have to be, that's like what they call asynchronous communication. So one could do it at one time, the other could do it at the other time. And the thing about OneNote is they sync automatically. So I even have a situation right now with a person, she has an assistant, and she and the assistant are like separated by a wall. The plan is to take the wall down, okay? That's the plan eventually, but right now we can't, so it's a little frustrating. They have to get up and back. So they actually have a OneNote that they use just to go back and forth with each other, okay? And we were playing with it the other day. Almost to the moment she types it, it shows up on the other ones. So they use it a lot for communication. So it just doesn't have to be boss and administrative assistant. It could be a team, etc. But I think there's a potential for a lot of collaboration. So the only question that I didn't go over is, how do you share? Up in the corner, there's a share. And then once again, you can indicate in the share, do you want them to view or edit? Normally, in this case, you'd want editing back and forth, but it's really easy and it's elegant. By the way, every once in a while, the audio recording comes in handy, especially on, that's why we left the memo. So if the boss is out and about in a car, she can actually just hit audio recording on her phone and send her an audio message if she's not in a place where she can type. Okay, what do you think? Like it? All right. All right. So I'm going to wrap up so I have time for my next item. Okay. By the way, if any of you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I'll give you another second. Anything else you want to ask? All right. I hope you found this helpful. If you come up with a really cool OneNote, share it with me. I always like to learn about strategies people are doing. Okay. And hopefully we'll see you at the next session, which I think is in November, probably. Okay. Thank you.